What was the best match on the Royal Rumble card? I'll tell you. Mark here from The Burning Hammer, and in this video, I will be giving you my match card grades for the Royal Rumble event. But first, if you want to watch our most recent video, click the link up in the corner. So the Royal Rumble is one of the most exciting events of the entire year, and I don't think that this one disappointed in the slightest bit. And even though there were only 4 matches on the card, the show still managed to hit the 4-hour mark, which I feel like they haven't done in a while. All right, so the first match that I'm going to talk about is going to be the Women's Royal Rumble match. Now, heading into this event, I said that this match was going to be better than the Men's Royal Rumble match, and my goodness, it was better. And honestly, it kind of felt like this one probably should have been in the main event. There were some reports going around prior to the actual Royal Rumble event that the Fatal 4-Way was going to be the main event of the Royal Rumble, which kind of makes sense when you have Roman Reigns defending on the card. He is most likely going to be the main event regardless of what show it was, but then that didn't end up actually happening. The Men's Royal Rumble match was actually in the main event slot, which I think was slightly worse than the women's, and I get why they put that one in the main event, because obviously Cody Rhodes won it and he went back to back and he's going to finish his story and all of that good stuff. I just think that the women's match could have probably benefited more from being in the main event spot, but I don't necessarily think it's really that big of a deal. So we got a couple of returns and surprises for this Women's Royal Rumble match. We got Naomi returning, we got Liv Morgan returning, Jade Cargill made her WWE debut, and we even had the TNA Knockouts World Champion, Jordynne Grace. She made her WWE debut, even though she's still under contract with TNA, I know, but she competed in the Royal Rumble match, and it was absolutely awesome. Now, this is the second time they've done that. I think it was in 2022. They did the same thing with Mickie James, and it's kind of different because Mickie James is one of the best women's wrestlers that WWE has ever seen, and so that's why it kind of made sense, because they had history. And then you throw Jordynne Grace, who's never wrestled in the WWE, at least I don't think so. If she has, let me know in the comments down below. But that's what made this super crazy, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens with WWE and TNA moving forward, because back in its prime, TNA was WWE's biggest competitor since WCW, and so now it's good to see that they're at least somewhat working together. Now, there's conflicting reports going around from wrestlers and then from actual journalists about what the relationship with TNA and WWE is, but regardless, I hope that this isn't the end of it. And I will say, seeing Jordynne Grace compete in this Royal Rumble match, she's obviously an absolute beast. So if you haven't seen her wrestle before, you definitely need to go on YouTube and go down the Jordynne Grace rabbit hole. But I think part of the problem was having her in this match really got my hopes up for the Men's Royal Rumble match with potentially Okada or Dolph Ziggler now going by Nick Nemeth. And obviously that didn't happen, which I'll get into later. But overall, I thought this was a fantastic Women's Royal Rumble match. We got a ton of really good spots, including the stare down between Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair. Now, I don't know if they're going to do that match at WrestleMania. It seems like potentially that's what it's going to be. But last year, we also got this stare down between Brock Lesnar and Gunther during the Royal Rumble, and that never really amounted to anything. So I wouldn't be surprised if we don't get the match at WrestleMania, in case they wanted to wait until Jade Cargill gets a little bit more of the WWE system in her before she takes on Bianca Belair. Plus, Jade also eliminated Naomi and Becky Lynch, so they could potentially be doing Jade versus Becky at WrestleMania, and then potentially having Liv take on Rhea for the title, because I think obviously Bayley's going to challenge Io Sky at WrestleMania. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do with Jade Cargill moving forward, especially with the Elimination Chamber as the next premium live event, because I think they're probably going to feature Jade Cargill on there. I would be shocked if they weren't going to have her on the Elimination Chamber match card. But overall, I'm going to give the Women's Royal Rumble match an A. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. And I know there weren't any nostalgic one-off appearances, which is totally fine. I'm actually happy that they're not really doing that anymore. And I don't know why people are shocked by this, especially in the men's Royal Rumble match, because last year we didn't really get any. So I don't know, like, what you were expecting. This is kind of the start of like a new era of the Royal Rumble match. So I'm happy they didn't do any one-off nostalgic appearances. And so the Women's Royal Rumble is getting an A. All right, so next up was the Fatal 4-Way match between LA Knight, AJ Styles, Randy Orton, and Roman Reigns. Now, I thought this match was fine. It's always tricky to do Fatal 4-Way matches, especially when you have wrestlers who haven't been on TV that much recently, like Randy Orton and AJ Styles. Obviously, they just both recently came back, but I'm talking prior to that, they haven't really been wrestling over the past few months, especially Randy Orton. So then you throw those guys in with someone like LA Knight, who's been red hot. Then you obviously have Roman Reigns, who competes maybe once a month, if that. So that's always like tough ingredients to put together for a really good match. I thought the match was fine. I'm going to give it a B-. I think the ending was a bit underwhelming, but I think that was mostly because I think Randy Orton may have been legitimately hurt in the match, because I think it was AJ Styles or it was LA Knight hit him with a move, and it was a move that shouldn't hurt your shoulder. Like, I think he was taking like a front bump, and then as soon as he hit the move on Randy just immediately grabbed his shoulder and kind of was like screaming in pain. So I think that had an effect on the ending of the match, because it didn't feel like there was a big lead up till the end of the match, and that's what I think this was seriously lacking. But I thought all of the men in this match did work well together, and I thought it was a super entertaining match. I really thought that Roman Reigns was going to stack everybody up and pin them all at the same time. We kind of saw glimpses of it. I think he actually did try it during the match, but I thought that's how he was going to close out it and secure the victory. But nevertheless, I think the biggest problem with this match was the ending. It just felt like it kind of came out of nowhere, and it didn't feel like the end of the match. Like, that's the whole thing with wrestling, is you can kind of feel when the match is going to be coming to an end just based off of like momentum and that sort of thing. And then once that happened, the match kind of just ended, and then you were just like, oh, that was a bit underwhelming. But I think that was potentially due to Randy being hurt. I haven't seen any like news reports or anything going off of that. It's kind of just like my assessment of the match. Regardless, the match was fine. B-. It was slightly above average, and so it's going to be interesting to see moving forward. I think we're going to now start the build between Cody and Roman Reigns. I don't think we needed the Solo Sikoa spot. It's funny, I saw someone tweet that like Solo doesn't need to wear the hoodie, like we know who he is. But I don't know, the Solo Sikoa spot, to me, I don't really think it added much to the match. Like, I don't think we really needed it. I kind of get why they did it, but I just don't really think it added anything to it. So I just don't think it was very necessary. You let me know your thoughts about Solo Sikoa appearing in this match again. I know it makes sense because he's been trying to like fix all of the problems that have been happening over the past few weeks, and he never really seems to fix them. But like I said, I just think it was unnecessary. But regardless, I did enjoy this match a lot, and I'm giving it a B-. All right, so next up was Kevin Owens challenging Logan Paul for the United States Championship, and I'm giving this match a C+. So my grading scale is going to be like a C is an average match, so anything above a C was above average, anything below a C was below an average. So I thought this match was slightly above average. I thought it was about as good as a Logan Paul versus Kevin Owens match can be. I'm not the biggest fan of Logan Paul. I don't think he's necessarily that good, and I thought the match was fine. It was a little bit above average. It sucks that Kevin Owens lost, but I thought they found an interesting way to do it. They didn't have, like, they tried to do the typical someone's going to interfere, and that's how KO's going to get screwed, but then it was kind of like KO screwed himself with the brass knuckles, and the ref saw. That was also a great spot by the ref, but I don't know. The match was fine. There's not really much to talk about, so that's why I'm just going to keep this part short, because I'm disappointed that Kevin Owens lost. But seems like we're probably going to get Logan Paul versus LA Knight at WrestleMania. Hopefully, I would have liked to see Kevin Owens win the U.S. title, have him do open challenges, but if this is all to put a title on LA Knight, then I'm going to be fine with it because LA Knight should hold a title in the WWE. Yeah. And lastly, in the main event spot was the men's Royal Rumble match, and I'm going to give this a B+. There weren't any crazy returns. There weren't any one-off appearances, which is totally fine by me. I would much rather see someone like Ricochet appear in the match as opposed to having the Boogeyman come in for a minute. Like, there's just so many wrestlers that deserve to get time on a premium live event more than just these old, washed-up wrestlers that we used to watch as kids. So I'm happy there weren't any one-off appearances. I don't know why people would expect that there would be, because they didn't do any last year. And that was kind of like that was like the mark of a new era for the Royal Rumble matches. Like, you're not going to get nostalgic picks. You're not going to get nostalgic entrances. And so I just don't expect it moving forward. I don't know why you were expecting it in the Royal Rumble this year, but just don't expect it moving forward. Regardless, there were a few good NXT call-ups. Carmelo Hayes, Braun Breaker. Pat McAfee was in the match. Now, apparently, according to Pat McAfee, he didn't know he was going to be in the match. I don't know how much I believe it. I mean, it makes sense because he had these crazy snakeskin cowboy boots on. I just thought it was a waste of a spot. I would have liked to see someone like Chad Gable in this Royal Rumble. I was kind of shocked that he wasn't in it. And so reportedly, Pat McAfee being in the match was a result of Brock Lesnar being pulled because his spot was supposed to go to Braun Breaker, but then Braun Breaker entered the match when Brock Lesnar was supposed to enter the match and basically just did everything Brock Lesnar was supposed to do, reportedly. I don't know. I feel like they could have probably had a wrestler besides Pat McAfee enter the match then, but it was funny having Cole and Graves just go, Pat, go, you got him, come on, Pat. Like, I love Cole and Pat McAfee's relationship. I think they're great on commentary together. It's going to be interesting to see who replaces Kevin Patrick on commentary with Corey Graves. I think Vic Joseph would be a great person to call up for commentary. He's really good in NXT, and honestly, I think he's one of the best commentators today, and I think he's super slept on, so I think it's going to be interesting to see. Maybe they bring back Mauro Ranalli if he wants to do that. If not, promote Vic Joseph. He's the man. He's super good, but I digress. I also thought they did something super cool at the beginning of the match when they had Jimmy and Jey Uso enter at 1 and 2, although it was also weird because they just their eliminations didn't mount to anything. Like, neither one had a hand in eliminating the other person. They just had like a bit of a face-off, and they obviously wrestled for like a minute and a half before the third entrant came out. But I don't know. It was weird. It seems like that's the way they're going to go at WrestleMania. It's going to be interesting to see if they are going to sort of cross paths in the meantime before we start to hit like after Elimination Chamber, or if they're going to start them like crossing paths now. I mean, personally, I think they should. I think they could build this match for like 2 months leading up to WrestleMania, and I think that would really help it. I hope they don't have like which is probably what's going to happen, but I just hope they don't do like a 1 month build for this match, because this is a story that they could really play out for a long time. But you let me know, who do you think should win this match at WrestleMania, Jimmy or Jey Uso? And obviously we had Cody Rhodes win the match. A lot of people seem to be upset, which is shocking. I thought that this was the absolute right call. I don't know why people are all of a sudden hating on Cody Rhodes. Everyone wanted him to win last year. We all loved him last year, and now he wins, and people all of a sudden don't like him. I also don't get how people thought the first time that The Rock was taking on Roman Reigns was going to be not in singles competition, as like it just doesn't make sense. Like, you don't know ball if you thought that the first time The Rock was going to challenge Roman Reigns was going to be in a triple threat match. Like, that obviously wasn't going to happen. And so Cody Rhodes is going to finish the story. Like we said on the podcast, everyone's overthinking it about who's going to win the Royal Rumble. It was always Cody Rhodes. They weren't going to put him on the cover of 2K24 if he wasn't going to finish the story, if he wasn't going to win this Royal Rumble. He's the first person since Stone Cold to go back-to-back in 1997 and 1998, and I thought they had a great finish with him and CM Punk. And that's something they're starting to do now more with the Royal Rumbles, is the final two wrestlers, they sort of like take a moment and then they have like a match at the end of the Royal Rumble match. And we've seen it a little bit before, but the end of the matches definitely go on longer now with the two wrestlers than they ever have been before. We saw it last year with Gunther and Cody Rhodes. We saw it this year with Cody Rhodes and CM Punk. Overall, I'm giving this show, like I said, a B-. You let me know in the comments down below. What do you think was the best match of the Royal Rumble event. All right, so overall, I thought this show was fantastic. It had only 4 matches, but it definitely didn't seem like it was dragging, and it definitely did not seem like it was going on for too long. I'm going to give the show as a whole a B. Now, I don't know if that is the average of all of the grades. Like, I'm not really doing it like that. I'm kind of just doing this separately, then figuring out the average of all of the matches, but I'm giving it a B. It was fantastic. Not sure why people are hating on it. Don't hate on it because it was really good. So with that being said, that is going to wrap up this episode, this little mini podcast, if you will. And we're moving on to the Elimination Chamber. So if you want to see my Elimination Chamber early match card predictions, you're going to want to tune in on Friday because that's when that video drops. With that being said, I will see you in the next video.